Welcome to another episode of Good Teams Win, Great Teams Cover. We're finally here, guys. We've got through the off season. It's the last episode before we get into our usual schedule of previewing and reviewing the weekends. So, guys, how you doing? How's it feel? We got here. We made it.
Buzzing, yeah. It's my favourite episode of the season, I think, as well. Like, it's get all the takes out. You know, it's hope season for everybody, including us. So, yeah, let's go and see what we're going to drain the bookies on this year.
Yeah, I can't wait. Very excited. Kind of got my little taste of college football last week and then just started last night from when we're recording. So, yeah, I'm ready, raring to go. Just can't wait till the NFL kickoff next Thursday when we've got the Chiefs and Ravens to kick off. So, yeah, so excited, ready to roll, and excited for a Good Teams and Great Teams cover our second full season together. Attacking this. So let's go win some more money and go win some more bets.
Yeah, so after doing the 8 divisions over the last 2 or 3 months, it feels like, with a lots of great guests and some insight and giving our early bets, this episode we're going to bring it all together and give our full season bets. We've come through it all, and yeah, we are figuring out where we want to go. So first off, shout out to follow all our social medias, our Instagram, our Twitter, our TikTok, everywhere else at GTW_GTC. You'll see everything there. You'll see our bets, our preview, all our episodes as well. Obviously, follow us on Spotify and on YouTube. But let's get into some news, because there's been some, for me personally, some great news, some news which has finally happened. And it's that Brandon Ayuk, after a long summer, has finally signed a contract and is remaining at 49ers. He signed a 4-year, $120 million deal with 71 around that mark guaranteed. And he fits into that spot, same yearly pay as Hill and St. Brown, and just below Lamb, Jefferson, and AJ Brown. So, guys, it's finally here. What's your feeling behind it? As a non-49ers fan, how happy should I be?
Yeah, very. I think the longer it went, the more likely it was he was going to stay, the more the leverage, I guess, the Niners got in terms of, he was going to have to take a mammoth, I think, offer to prize him away, getting so close to the start of the season. And they were going to need somebody in return that they could have just plugged in. And there aren't many of those guys around in the NFL, and not many of the people, the teams that we're talking about that were interested in Ayuk, that they have to give up. So, yeah, kind of as it's gone on, it's just felt more and more likely this was going to be the eventual outcome. And then it kind of feels right money-wise in terms of kind of where he is versus the rest. That's probably kind of where he slots in. So, yeah, everyone seems happy, and, chance for now a week or so of practice to get him ready. And I'm sure, it won't be an issue. Ayuk having kind of held in, and he's just been hanging around, really, hasn't he, as opposed to fully practicing. But, yeah, don't think it'll have any detrimental impact to Ayuk or the Niners' offense.
I'm just waiting for week 1 where Kyle Shanahan has Deebo Samuel and Juwan Jennings in 2 wide receiver sets as an FU for holding out all summer. But, truthfully, I wouldn't say I've been worried about it. If I was a 49ers fan, I'm trying to put a 49ers hat on there. Also, off-season, it's felt like to me like he's not going to leave, because it just doesn't make any sense. Like, he's such a great weapon. And he's kind of, I often kind of laugh about it a little bit, like, because he hasn't really had like I know fantasy football isn't everything, but like it's counting stats. So, those positions, it does matter. He's never been a top 12 wide receiver in fantasy, but that's because he's on such a good offense that everybody has to get the ball. And like, if you put him somewhere where he's an undoubted number 1, he probably would be a number 1 receiver. It's funny to kind of see like a player who's never had a number 1 wide receiver season in the same pay bracket, but he's bet on himself consistently. He's made himself a nuisance all off season to make sure he gets paid what he thinks he's worth, and what his actual like play and his metrics show that he's worth. So, next one to do is just get Trent Williams over the line, because he might be the most important aspect of that 49ers offense keep rolling. And I think Trent Williams is well aware of that. They've restructured McCaffrey this offseason. Ayuk's got his pay bump this offseason. Trent Williams is a man who is very principled, and I think will hold out if he isn't feeling respected. So, 1 down, one big one to go for the Niners, I feel.
Yeah, I've always thought Trent Williams would get paid. I think it's too important. Ayuk's the first year. It's becoming a running theme now with the 49ers off-season when just before the year starts to pay the biggest stars. Obviously Nick Bosa last year, but I was never worried about Nick Bosa. I always knew they were never going to get rid of him. Ayuk, it got to a point where I thought he was a goner when there was all the trade speculations, and I think if he was happy to go to the Patriots or the Browns, I think he would have gone. I don't think the 49ers would have stopped him. I think they were happy with the deals they got for them.
Yeah.
Obviously, there was rumors come out with the Steelers that they were going to give a second and third, and the 49ers were going to use that third to get Cortland Sutton from the Broncos, which, just getting a second. I would prefer Ayuk. I think he is the number one wide receiver for 49ers, especially going forward as well. I think this could be Debo's last year, and a few of the players, they can't keep paying them. There's a few players like Hufanga and a few as well. They just can't keep paying them top dollar. So it feels like they're all in, but it's finally done. Get Trent over the line and see them at the Jets when we play the Jets on Monday Night Football.
And I think your point as well there, sorry, of like what I said to Paul Hope when we had him on a week or two ago at the West preview was like, as soon as Ayuk turned down the Patriots and the Browns, it felt like it was just like the leverage is so heavy on the Niners now because you've shown you're not desperate to go anywhere. You only want to go somewhere, presumably that's going to be a winning franchise or at certain organizations. And at that point, it's like, well, you've really just told the Niners you really want to stay. And it's hard to squeeze that extra little bit of money out because the talk Adam Schefter posted yesterday was this is a deal that's been on table all month. And they finally just took it. So I think it's really worked out win-win for everybody.
Yeah, I think when John Lynch came out and it was like enough's now, I felt like it was either going to sign or they would just say, okay, we'll just send him to the Steelers and we'll take what we can. But that's so good. So moving on to another extension, but this time a coach, Mike McDaniels of the Miami Dolphins has signed a contract extension to 2028. Let's ask Paul, in your opinion, would you say he's a top 5 coach in the league and certainly worth this money?
This is an interesting question because obviously the Dolphins are and have been much better the last couple of years than they have, than they had been for the previous, 20 or whatever it is. Still not got that playoff win though. It's 24 years now without this playoff win. And I know the first year Mike McDaniel had a kind of a bit of a tough go because he was having to play Skylar Thompson in a playoff game that they did almost nearly win. My worry with the Miami Dolphins is what's going to change when it gets to January. And that's probably my concern. So I think we might see something similar again this year. But how do you change that? Because is Mike McDaniel going to change his style to? There's got to be this toughness, and it's a bit easy and a bit long to say, oh yeah, they're just soft. But we've sort of seen it, haven't we? And we saw it last year when it got tough, and when it got to January football and playoff football, they just don't seem to have what it takes to play that way. So I don't know. I do like him. He's a great character. And I get Miami haven't had success. So you know what, stick with this guy. Makes sense. Don't it's just you're tying to yourself to him now for another 4 years potentially. What's going to change?
I think, to be fair, it's his first 2 years as a head coach. January wins haven't been there, certainly, but throughout the regular season, they've been really good. 11-win season last season. I think that was their first since 2008, 2009, I think. It's not something they've done regularly, certainly. They're not a winning organization. I think it's certainly up there with Kyle Shanahan, Sean McVay is the best offensive play callers in the NFL. I can't wait what he brings out on Sunday, or week on Sunday, unfortunately, against the Jags. I'm sure he'll have something cooking because he always does, whether it's a cheat motion with Tyreek Hill or, scheming the running backs into easy yardage. Until they do start winning playoff games, obviously there'll be some sort of question mark there. But I think considering the state the Dolphins win when Brian Flores left, it was kind of I know he'd had winning seasons, to be fair, but it felt like an organization that was kind of not heading in a positive direction. And Stephen Ross, the Dolphins ownership, they wanted Sean Payton, they wanted Tom Brady, very much a bit of a throwback, and instead they went with Tua and Mike McDaniel. I think it's been nothing but positive outside those playoff wins, which, is a red flag, but I don't think there's many more coaches I would want to be tied down to the next 5 years than Mike McDaniel. Just what he's done in his only first 2 years as a head coach.
Yeah, I think it definitely gives them an advantage in schematics, and that's what you really want from a head coach. I think it bumps them up, and I think obviously tying down Tua as well. Like, what other head coach are you going to get which does better with Tua? And I think that's like the big thing. It's so I think they're one the right to keep him, and hopefully if they can stay away from that injury bug, because I think it gets forgotten last year how many injuries they had on that defense. So see where they go from there. Moving on to the next. So we've talked about the starting quarterbacks a lot, and we mentioned one in our previous episode, but we'll just dive into a little bit. So the Steelers named Russell Wilson as the starting quarterback, and the New England Patriots announced Jacoby Brissett. I think it was expected at the start of the offseason. It was a lot closer with some of them with people expected. So I'll throw over to you, Byron. Give us you can set the line on the over and under before they get dropped for the backup.
I think Drake May will end up starting probably 12 games. So what's that? 5 games for Jacoby Brissett. So we'll set the over under 5.5. I think it's basically how chaotic is that offensive line and what can we expect Drake May to survive in. I think Drake May has outplayed Jacoby Brissett in the preseason and the training camp. And I think if it was based purely on that, I think Drake May would be starting week 1. But that O-line is a real issue. And the Patriots aren't winning this year. So, there's no huge rush to rush him in. But, I think they'll want to get him live football action as soon as possible because it does help you develop. So, yeah, I'll put it at 5.5 for Jacoby Brissett. And Russell Wilson, Justin Fields, I think is going to be a really interesting one because, again, coming into the offseason, coming into training camp, it was Russell Wilson's going to be the starter. And Justin Fields got his chance with Russell Wilson's calf injury to maybe start games, and he didn't quite shine the buff. I don't think had especially good training camps. I'm not saying it was Minshew or Connell level, but it wasn't great. And Mike Tomlin actually came out yesterday and said, Justin Fields is too good to have on the bench. So I think there might be packages for Justin Fields in week 1, maybe around the goal line, maybe with those heavy tight end sets like we discussed on our AFC North preview. But I think, again, I'd probably set the over-under on Wilson starting at 7.5. I think about half the season. And I'm not even going to say it'll be like he comes out in week 7. I might see it like the split, like weeks 1 and 2, and then someone else starts weeks 3 and 4. It depends how they go. I just think they're going to be so hot and cold and up and down, those two quarterbacks, that I think there might be some to-in and fro-in. And Tomlin's done that before, with Pickett, Trubisky, Mason Rudolph last year. He hasn't really been able to settle on a quarterback since Ben Roethlisberger left. And I mean, they've all been bad, so I understand it. But he's not shown conviction of, I'm picking this guy and he's the guy. So yeah, I'm picking 7.5 as the over-under for Russell Wilson.
Yeah, that was what I was just about to say before you made the point. I think there might be a bit of kind of hokey-cokey with Wilson and Fields in and out because I think the fan base of the Steelers is getting very impatient. They're just sick of being middle of the road and know that they need to get some decent quarterback play. That defense will keep them in games and the defense will even win them games, but they need better from that quarterback position. And I just don't think they're going to be particularly patient. And I think there's going to be pressure on Tomlin to make a change quickly if it's not going well. And either way, I'm not expecting Wilson or Fields to kind of set the world alight. So I think there might be a bit of to-in and fro-in between the two. And I think Drake May they might be forced to play Drake May quicker than they want because, like I say, that offensive line is going to be terrible for the New England Patriots. I think Brissett's back there and he might get banged up quickly and you might be forced to play Drake May then quicker than you necessarily wanted to.
Yeah, I think doing it that way around, because if you start Drake May, then you've got to take him out. I think that's a lot worse than the other way around. So even if it's only 2 or 3 games with Brissett, it's like, okay, we'll put the kid in now and we'll see where it goes. And you already know. But yeah, certainly can't wait to see Arthur Smith's plan to get Cordell Patterson and Justin Fields on the goal line doing some trickery kind of things and failing miserably.
We've seen in the preseason them using Cordell Patterson. So
just lovely. Yeah. Cool. And the final. Oh God, Byron.
I was going to say this isn't really related to what we just talked about. Just mentioned Kenny Pickett reminded me of a great stat I've seen this week. I don't know if you want it as a quick trivia question. Of the 2022 NFL draft, I think there was 9 quarterbacks taken. There's only 2 remaining in their current team who drafted them. Any idea?
Purdy's one.
Brock Purdy, the last Mr. Irrelevant, obviously.
Oh, it's like a backup, isn't it? Because I think I saw this stat as well. It's like Nobody.
It was the penultimate quarterback taken in the draft. Skylar Thompson is the
Skylar
Dolphins backup this year, with Mike White being released and signing with the Bills practice squad, I believe. Everyone else, has already been traded, released, cut completely, or not in the league. And it's a rough business trying to pick quarterbacks, apparently, in a down year. And somehow the 49ers fall into their franchise quarterback if Mr. Irrelevant. Incredible.
Happy times. Cool. And then the final piece of news, just since we are a UK-based podcast, that Louis Zammit did get released from the Chiefs. I don't think it was that surprising that didn't make the 53, but I think everyone expected him to be on the practice squad. It seems like they used the IPP position for another player, so they just said, you're probably better off elsewhere. And he's joined the Jaguars, and he's changed positions. I think that's a strange one. Yeah, Paul, what do you make of it all? Change positions, going to the Jags, is obviously a London heavy team.
So they seem to see him as a wide receiver, right? And that's not what he was doing for the Chiefs. So yeah, it's a strange one. They see something that obviously the Chiefs haven't, or they think they see something. I'd worry for him going to the Jags just because, I don't think they've been a particularly competent organization in the nicest possible way for a long period of time. So yeah, I don't know if that was the best line spot. It made sense in terms of the UK appeal, given obviously the Jags ties with London and the UK. But yeah, I don't know. For Louis himself, I think it'd be better for him to land in a lot of other places. So we'll see, and hopefully it does work out. Of course, we're pulling for all those guys to be successful and to get a chance. So fingers crossed it does work out for LRZ, and we'll see. We'll see what he can do there in Jacksonville.
Awesome, yeah, and shout out to all the UK players and European players on the IPP who's managed to make some practice squads. I know Charlie Smith's made it and a few of us. So fingers crossed we get to see him during the year.
Very important distinction to make, by the way. I can't remember, I'd seen it on some Twitter account. I can't remember what it was, not to shame them, but they were saying congrats to the British guys. And it was like the two Irish lads, Charlie Smith and the Giants kicker, and LRZ. And I was like, well, I don't think any of them would actually identify themselves as being British. Certainly Irish lads, of course, absolutely not. But if you were to ask LRZ, I'm pretty sure he'd certainly say he was just Welsh. So yeah, whatever admin, who still didn't take that down, by the way, and just had tons of Irish people comment on him abusing whoever ran that account, which was hilarious.
Yeah, the Irish thing's certainly not great. Welsh, I can understand. They are British technically, but yeah, the Irish-British thing. It's had some troubles down the years, should we say?
But the modern world trolling probably gets them. They probably got the most amount of numbers they've ever got. So there you go. Right, so that's the headlines. Let's move on to the main body of the podcast, and let's talk about 2024 NFL season bets. So we're going to start off, as always, with our over/under games within each team, and if they're going to make the playoffs. So we're going to split between. So we'll tackle Paul's first. So I'll just go with his overs to start with. So he's got the Baltimore Ravens over 10.5. He's got the Bills over 9.5. Lions over 10.5. Chiefs over 11.5. The Rams over 9.5. The Jets over 10.5. And the 49ers over the 11.5. All high marks. So Paul, if you could, out of the 7 you chose over, is there one where you're very bullish on, where you think this is 100%? Is there one where you flip-flopped and it's probably your least confident out of the 7?
So I guess the one maybe I'd be least confident in is maybe the Jets. Maybe the Jets will be the one I'm least confident in. You just don't know what Rodgers is going to be like after he's back. But I'm on the Jets for a lot of things, as we'll see through this episode. But yeah, that's probably the one I'd be least confident with. But I've got kind of a couple of game margin on that one. I've got the Jets at 13 wins, so over 10.5 to me seems like a good line. It's plus, obviously, the plus money as well. So plus 130, just better than even money. But yeah, that'd be the one I'd say I'm most least confident in. And then I guess there's a few I'm more confident in. The Chiefs, very obviously extremely confident in, over 11.5. The Bills to get to 10 wins, I think. I've got the Bills at 13 wins as well. So, I think that's the one that I've got the biggest gap in terms of where I've done the run versus the line. And then, the Rams as well, we talked about, I think, we all thought the Rams were kind of a bit underrated. I've got the Rams at 12 wins, so that's, I'm 2 games ahead of that as well. So over 9.5. So yeah, I think the Rams, I'm confident. And I think that's the one with the biggest odds as well, I think, in my over-unders at plus 160.
Yeah, they're certainly, like I said, they're all higher games. I always find it tricky when the perception of a team being good or bad in the preseason. You think, oh, of course they're all going to get over that, and all the bad teams are going to be all under it. So I always try and figure that out. But yeah, I do like all of them. Yeah, you'll see with mine, the Jets, and I think Ravens will be my least confident. But yeah, do you like any of them? Any comments, Byron, or let's move on to the polls unders?
Yeah, I mean, there's one that I massively disagree on. We'll get to it, I guess, maybe on my overs. One of my favorite teams of this 2024 season. So, yeah, I think the Seahawks 7.5, I think, is disrespectful, and yet Paul has gone under it. So, it's probably one we're going to disagree with a lot in the season, I would dare say, until Paul sees the light.
Yes,
or I'm proven wrong, which, equally likely as much as I love to troll.
Yeah. So I'll just touch on Paul's unders. So it's got the Falcons under 9.5 at plus 110. He's got the Browns at under 8.5 at plus 120. Seahawks, or Byron just mentioned, under 7.5 at plus 130. He's got the Buccaneers under 7.5, which is plus 115. And we'll add in, because it's linked, he's got the Falcons not making the playoffs, so under 9.5, and not making the playoffs at plus 6.5. So not a Kirk believer then, Paul. Not fancying this new and improved Falcons team.
Well, not all, because conceivably they could go 9-8, win the division, and I can win both of those bets.
But if they win the division, they're probably making the playoffs.
Sorry, yeah, it's my fault. I meant the under 9.5. Sorry, my apologies. That was where my thinking was, in terms of, I don't think someone's going to get to 10 wins in that NFC South.
Yeah.
So yeah, so even if they were good, so to speak, and I just don't see them getting to double-digit wins. I'm not sold on them. Full stop. To be fair, I think I've got them at, I think it might be 7 wins or 8 wins. So again, it's like 2-game buffer. That's why I liked it. Plus money on the under 9.5. And then, yeah, I just took the no playoffs as well. It's a very similar bet, but the better odds at plus 165. Because if they don't get to 9 wins, they're definitely not making the playoffs. So, yeah, I just saw that as a bit of extra.
Definitely with that division, but
I'd be, you know what, if they go 8
any other
9,
division, I'd go with you. But
if they go 8-9 and I don't cash that no playoffs bet, Jesus Christ, they have been very unlucky there, haven't they?
Yeah.
It's strange how heavily favoured they are in that division. I think that's a really so I do like the odds of the no playoffs, just because how it's just assumed that they're going to win it. You'll probably see later on, I think they might, but it's still, I was surprised at how big of the gap. Any of those, do you want to rebuttal, Byron, based on the Seahawks in the 7.5?
I'm not sold on the Seahawks. I was in a very similar position last year, and maybe the line's just a bit too low, to be fair. But I was in a similar position last year where I thought the tail off or take a step backwards, and they did. But some of that definitely was injury driven, and particularly the line problems that they had. So if they don't have those this year, then potentially they might be better. But again, I think Gino will take a step back again, and that's key. The quarterback position, it doesn't mean he's going to be terrible. It doesn't mean he's going to be bad. But I just think he's going to continue to regress. Yeah. And there's a lot to like about the Seahawks, don't get me wrong. But yeah, I think obviously the division's very tough. I think the Rams are going to take another step forward as well. So I think potentially you're not going to get anything out of those games between the Niners and the Rams. I think you might go 0-4 in those. So I'm just struggling to find 8 wins for them. I think that's the difficulty. And I think I've got them at 6. Is that right? No. That's all I. Sorry, I've got them at 4-13. So yeah, which is why it was a bit of a drop off, and that might be harsh. There's some 50-50 games in there in terms of what I see equal teams, so they could win more of those. But yeah, I just saw it as a stretch for them to get to 8. Hence why I've gone under.
Shock, 5 wins there, man. The odds under 5.5 would be a nice little payday.
Yeah, if you want to do a side hustle of over 4.5 here, I'll be taking the over 4.5. Let me get my mortgage payment down here, please.
I might be far too low on them, and I suspect 4 wins is far too low on them. But I'm struggling to. I'm certainly struggling to find them an extra 4 wins anyway when going back through that schedule.
I won't rebuttal one here, but we're rather than just arguing about the Seahawks for the next hour. I think over 10.5 for the Lions. I'm not sure if you have it as well, Joe, but it's on my sheet. I think it's one of the best bets of the season. I struggle to see how, not jumping too far ahead here, but if they go 9-8, I'd be stunned. If they go 10-7, I'd be surprised. I think they're set up to pretty much dominate. I don't think a 13, 14, 15 win season is out of the realm of possibility. They are so well constructed. And again, they've kept Ben Johnson. Dan Campbell is a coach I want for a winning organization that he's, largely created with Brad Holmes. I think the arrow is so far up on Detroit, and 10.5 is a lot of wins, obviously, but I really struggle to see how they would get less than 10 or 10 or fewer, should I say.
I think the biggest shock so far is Paul's not backing his guy Baker Mayfield anymore. So he's fallen lovers and drafting fantasy is going under the 7.5.
Yeah, I think so. I just think it's a drop off for them. A lot of still a relatively old team. It's another year older, and we've not seen Baker put 2 good years together yet. So why would that start now? We'll see. And again, just struggling to find 8 wins for the Buccaneers. And it's not a massive drop off, is it? To get they won 9 games last year. It's not a massive drop off, is it? To get to 7. So.
And they were in some close games last year as well.
Yeah.
I am interested though. Actually, I'm not smart as Joe. I hadn't pictured the 2 NFC South teams there. So do you have the Saints going 14-3 or 15-2 or
9-8?
Are you got the Panthers winning the division again?
No.
Yeah, I didn't realize the Falcons and Bucks are there. So yeah, someone's got to win some. Well,
they don't, do they?
Yeah, I started saying it.
No, nobody has to win any games. But
Very good point. Yeah.
I just thought as well as the Buccaneers won the division last year, didn't they? As well, so naturally you just got some tougher games as a result. Yeah. So yeah.
Nice. So we'll move on to Byron. So he's got 3 overs. So he's got which is mentioned the Seahawks over 7.5 at -160. He's got the Rams over 8.5. Which is -60 as well, and the Lions over 10.5 at -130. And he's got the Seahawks and Rams, unsurprisingly, both making the playoffs. So the Seahawks are +180 to make it, and the Rams at -110. So you've mentioned the Lions, so you're fancying these Rams as well, similar to Paul. Then it's you see it all. You see if you've got the 49ers in, that's 3 NFC West teams. Then I'm guessing you'll be predicting. So you're expecting a strong division there.
Yeah, certainly. Yeah, and it kind of sucks for the Cardinals, who I think are an interesting team. I think they'll be good for fantasy. They're offensive players, but I think the defense is so weak that they're going to struggle to get wins. Even though I think they might be improved from last year as a team, I think they might end up with fewer wins or the same amount of wins as last year. But yeah, I think all 3 of those teams are so well built and so well constructed, so well coached. The Rams with McVay, I think Mike McDonald's going to be a great hire in Seattle, and obviously the 49ers. If you give me 8.5 and 7.5 on the 49ers, they'd be on here as well. But I think all 3 of them have fairly similar upside, and they've all had pretty good training camps, off seasons. So yeah, I think they're going to be 3 teams from the NFC West. I think the NFC South is a dirt nap of a division. Did we say my no playoff teams there? Because I think the NFC is a bit. Yeah,
I'll mention them now. So you've got your no playoffs. You got the Bills up +140, and you've got the Cowboys, your Cowboys, +170, not making the playoffs in the NFC.
So that's kind of where again it goes in line with. I think the NFC East is a bit of a dirt nap division as well. The NFC South is a dirt nap division. NFC North has 3 good teams in it, and the NFC West has 3 good teams in it. So I think it might come down to who gets that 7th playoff spot between the Seahawks, the Rams, probably not the Niners, let's face it, they'll probably be too good. But Seahawks, Rams, Packers, Bears, probably. And again, unfortunately, the Falcons can't give that spot to that team because I think the Falcons are worse than all of those teams I just mentioned. But I think there's going to be 5 playoff teams from the NFC North and the NFC West, ultimately. I think the Cowboys they've had a disastrous offseason, truthfully, and I really worry about how he's going to play into the season. Dak on his final year of his contract, unless something miraculous happens, but it really doesn't sound like it. He sounds pissed off, truthfully. His comments about Jerry Jones the other day, basically like what Jerry says in the media, I just tune out. I think Dak wants to test the market, and make himself the highest paid player in NFL history, and good for him. It's I'll always back players wanting to get paid, and the Cowboys have not managed Dak's contracts well, I think, at any point in his career. I think the course only been a 4th-round pick for a long time. And I just, you've got your coach on a 1-year deal, probably on the hot seat. Your quarterback's probably on the way out. I just don't think there's much to be excited about in Dallas. I think that, I think they're going to be under 500, maybe 8 or 9 wins. More likely 8, I think, is how I have them. And I just think there's a kind of a real disaster potential, as opposed to, I think there's much more chance that they finish with a top 10 pick than a Super Bowl. A lot more chance.
Yeah. Well, it's going to be a fun show with you guys this year. Then.
It is.
In many ways, I like. It sounds crazy. Not having hope is better than having hope, because it means you can enjoy it more. Enjoy watching all the other teams who are actually good, rather than getting all excited for the playoffs just to watch Zeke at center or Dak running up the clock with 4 seconds remaining, running up the center of the field. I'm fine going into a season with no hope. That's absolutely fine.
I just think there's going to be a way where they're just going to kind of stumble to 10 or 11 wins and just get in as a wild card. I think
it's not impossible, obviously. They do have some good players still. I don't want to say that. I just think the vibes are just so bad, I think, right now. And I wouldn't be surprised if Dak misses games just out of preservation. If I was him, I wouldn't be rushing to play through injuries.
Yeah, that's fair. I think there's just the games there when you look at the schedule where they're just so much better than a lot of those teams. And even badly managed, badly coached, they'll just have enough to win those games. And there's enough of them. They've got very, very tough games as well. But there's enough of those games to get you close to 10 wins. So,
like I say, I have them at 8, which isn't a million miles from 10. So it's not out of the realm of possibility. I just don't think it's happening.
Fair enough.
Yep. And we'll just touch on your unders. So you've got the Vikings under 6.5 at plus 130. You've got the Broncos under 5.5 at plus 120. And the Titans under 6.5 at minus 3.5. So again, you've gone for some low unders. But I think from my point of view, these 3 teams are the ones I've struggled with the most, where I don't know how it's going to work out with them, because I think obviously I think coaches will help. I think obviously Tennessee getting a new coach, getting that offensive line coach with Callahan there. I think once you have a good offensive line, you can pick up these random wins, which we see every year. Yeah. And I feel like Sean Payton could get a few wins out there. So out of them 3, is out the 3 you're confident with, any of them massively, or anyway you're not quite sure, but you think it might just be under?
The one I'm most confident with is the Vikings. I really worry for the Vikings this year. Again, thankfully, I think they are set up for future success rather than this year. But with no JJ McCarthy to come in, Sam Darnold, I don't think is in any way starting quarterback in the NFL. He might have a few good games here and there because Kevin O'Connell's a good head coach. But, we've just seen they've lost the 1st-round pick from 2022, Louis Sean. They just waived him. I don't think they're an especially talented team. Obviously, they have the best wide receiver in football, and they have an okay offensive line, above average one certainly. But I think there's so little on that team, and they're in a tough division. I struggle to see how they get to 5 wins. I have them at 2-15. I think there's a good chance they have the worst record in football come the end of the season. I have the Broncos as my bet for that on our AFC West preview, but I think those two could be battling out for the number 1 pick come, December, January.
I think what I just worry about that is just even last year when they had Dobbs, whatever the old 49ers guy, his name. Mullins, yes. And they still managed to pick up these random wins. Yeah. And I always worry about low unders just because
it doesn't take much.
Yeah, these teams just how did the Vikings beat the 49ers last year when you look at it? And there's games like that. How did the Cardinals beat the Cowboys? And it's always these random games.
Why'd you bring that up for? Why'd you bring that up for?
Well, I brought 49ers up as well. Just the two came tough of but I think they've got a good coaching staff, and I think that certainly helps. I think all 3 teams. So yeah, I think the price, especially the Vikings and Broncos, are a good price, but it's a worry because I think most teams end up on 6 anyway, 6 or 7. It's just how it falls. So some good shouts. So we'll move on to mine. So I've got 5 over. So agreed with Byron with the Seahawks over 7.5, the Rams over 8.5. I agreed with Paul, the Chiefs over 11.5 and the Bills over 9.5. And the one where you guys haven't touched is the Colts. I've got them over 8.5 and I've got them to make the playoffs at plus 140. The over 8.5 was plus 100 evens. Colts, to me, they've become my pet team. I feel like they're actually going to be a lot better than what people think. And I think they're going to challenge the Texans for that division. As the offseason's gone on and on, I've liked them most. I think they're the most, if Anthony Richardson is how he played in them 9 quarters, which is obviously not a huge sample size, then this team could be exciting and could be really fun. And I think they've got a great defense. They've got a great coaching staff who managed to get, one drop catch away from making the playoffs with Gardner Minshew. So I think they've improved. They've got better that way. And I just like 8.5. I think, especially in the South, I think they can push on. And I do like them odds. I don't know how you guys are feeling about the Colts and at the 8.5 mark.
Yeah. I have them at 8 and 9, but I really wouldn't be surprised to see them go up to even like 11. I'm really excited about Anthony Richardson. I know he's very hot and cold and he's still a project, but I trust Shane Steichen to get the best out of him. Like I said, I have them at 8 and 9, but it's one, as you say, I haven't bet on them either way. I certainly wouldn't be betting the under. If I was going to bet, even though I have them at 8, I would take the over just because I think there's boom potential there. Yeah, I'm really excited to see them. I don't have them in the playoffs. I have them just missing out, I think, as a 9 seed. But yeah, I certainly wouldn't rule them out. And like I said, I certainly haven't bet against them. They're a team I'm really excited to watch.
Yeah, I'm on the flip side. I'm just not convinced. I'm not sure what we're going to get from them, and I'm not sure what we're going to get from Richardson. It'd be interesting. I know they've got maybe I don't know if you'd say a better insurance policy in Flacco than Minshew. I don't know, but my worry is he's just going to get hurt again. And also, I think the more he's going to be the more you see the defense is going to be real quick to work him out. I think the coaches in the NFL and defensive coaches are going to be real quick to find ways to just kind of stop his joy. I think for him, just the nature of his game and his play, I think it'll be easier to do for them as well. So we might see him in the first few weeks because we've not seen him do that much. You mentioned 9 quarters of play. There's not that much tape on him. We might see him kind of be good for the first few weeks and then just be shut down kind of along the way. So I just don't know. I do think he's probably within one of the best coaches he could be with to get the best out of him. But yeah, I don't know. I'm just really not sure with the Colts. I've got them at 7 wins, so but I wasn't confident enough in it to place it as an under bet.
And I do think they do have defensive issues. I think the front 7 is good, but I think their back DBs are a weakness. And I think, again, it's just going to make them really fun to watch. And, our fantasy game day lineups, our fantasy seasons, DFS, etc. I think I'm going to have a lot of Colts players and Colts opponents in them. I think they're going to have some really high scoring games. So, again, looking forward to them, even if I'm not actually betting them as an over.
Yeah, so then my unders, I've got the Cowboys under 10.5 at minus 200. I have them at 9 or 10 wins, so you'll see later on when I play. I still think they're going to make the playoffs, but I think they're going to be under 10.5. I've got the Jets under 9.5 at plus 135. I've got the Panthers under 5.5 at evens, and the Bears under 9.5 at minus 155. So I'll touch on the Jets because I also have them not making the playoffs. I do worry about the Jets. That when you actually look at the squad, I think it's coming over from last year. There's this hype, and now Rodgers is back. He's suddenly going to make this team amazing. There's obviously been some reports. I don't know if you've seen. I saw this on Bleacher Report that apparently it's very toxic around Aaron Rodgers, and it's not a great scenario right now in New York, which I'm not surprised at. I was
tough to believe, right?
Yeah, I didn't like it last year where it feels like he's running that team. He should never have a player who runs that team. They should always be the coach and the GM, but it feels far away from that. They kept the OC who, God knows how, who's one of probably the worst OCs and head coaches around, for quite some time. And when you start looking at the positions, is that all line going to hold up? Obviously, if they all stay fit, it'll be great. Is Rodgers going to get back to his best? The last year he played a full season, he wasn't at his sparkling best, and Green Bay were happy to get rid of him, and Jordan Love showed what they could do with that team. And that defense, when you look at that defensive line, now that Riddick's, what's happening there? Who's their second pass rusher? How's that going to work? And I just think they're in a tough division and just tough AFC. So I just see them, and it's the Jets. I think that's also, it doesn't help as well. It's the Jets where I can see them going, 6-7 wins and it's clear house. Get rid of, Salah, get rid of Joe Douglas, and Aaron Rodgers goes out and says, "Oh, it wasn't my fault. It's other people's fault." And, the media's against me. So I just don't trust them at all to make the playoffs and actually be a good team. It just feels like I did it last year and I got burnt. I know it was the injury, but like we said plenty of times, there was a lot of dysfunction in that team that it feels like it was just an easy way out to be like, well, if Rodgers were fit, we would have done a lot better. I don't know if they would have, and I think they're in that same position now.
Yeah, I don't know. I'm willing to ride again, and I'm bought in again. I think your point about this Hassan Reddick stuff needs to be resolved, and if not, it really needs Will McDonald to step up. We saw, and I think flashes is a generous term to use. It flashes of what he could do last year, but he's going to need to come on a lot then if they're going to be without Reddick. But yeah, I don't know. I just think, again, you don't know what Rodgers is going to be like being kind of 40 years old and 39 still. Anyway, be 40 during the season, won't we? Off the back of an Achilles injuries, and you can say the same thing about Kirk Cousins in Atlanta for kind of an older guy coming off a significant injury. But we know what Aaron Rodgers is capable of, and even a 80% Aaron Rodgers is significantly better than any quarterback play that team has had in a very, very long period of time. And with that defense, if it can, even if the defense regressed a little bit, the fact that you're going to be more than make up for it on offense, yeah, I just think they're going to be really, really good. I think I might have over-egged it at 13 wins, but I definitely think double-digit wins for sure.
What do you have as your record for them, Joe?
I had about like 7 or 8.
Yeah,
I just, like I said, I just worry about just the whole atmosphere, and it feels like if one thing goes wrong, it's like it's all going to go wrong. It doesn't feel like a together kind of team where they'll just how missing camps, how he got his own players in, how it feels like he kept the LC. If they get rid of like Bob Salah, it feels like if they start bad, they'll probably get rid of him. Maybe even mid-season, who you really going to hire? Well, it just feels that it feels like one. Yeah, well, as an interim, no.
Exactly. Yeah, exactly.
I'll be Rodgers.
Well, that's kind of my point. Yeah, like it's the double act. I think the one thing I do have in their favor, obviously they're starting a real rough. I expect them to go 0-1. Obviously, they start at the Niners, but then after that they play the Titans, Patriots, Broncos, Vikings before they get the Bills. So like, if they're not 3-1 or 4-1, then I think there is a real crisis, and Salah might be the first head coach fired. I do have them winning the division at 11, but I think you make a real good point about the defensive line, because I think we've all just kind of, maybe it's me, but like it feels like they've had a strong defensive line for a while now without a premier pass rusher maybe, but like outside of Quinn and Williams, it is like a lot of, there's not much there actually now. And if Hassan Reddick doesn't work out and he ends up getting traded, and a lot of talk that he will, like you say, Will McDonald really needs a big second year, because that cupboard's almost bare. So I definitely see the downside of it. I'd much rather, again, I do have them making the playoffs, but again, you're seeing it's not one I'm betting. I can definitely see that downside case.
They're not similar to like piece, sorry, because you've never seen them do it before, or you've not seen them do it before so long, so it's hard to trust them, right?
Yeah, and I feel it's similar to 49ers. You just think, their defensive line is awesome, and then until you look into it, like, oh shit. And and the other two, just the Panthers, I think they're going to be better this year. I just think they might still struggle just because of that squad. And I think the Bears are going to be very up and down. I think Caleb Williams is going to have some highlights and going to show like real promise, but he's also going to have some low lights too. And I always worry about just a defense who came on strong at the end of the year, but it was mainly turnovers. Can you rely on turnovers year in, year out? I felt like defense is very up and down. So to be like, well, that defense is going to be a top defense again, it doesn't always work out that way. So that's why I have them under 9.5. But I still see them winning like 8 and 9 and challenging, but I just don't think they're quite making. And my final one is the Browns are making the playoffs. I just don't like that quarterback situation. That's basically end of. And a similar defense, which might regress, especially when we've talked about the numbers home the way. That's not a good thing to have. So that's the over under the playoffs. So we'll move on to the division, conference, and Super Bowls we've got. So I'll quickly run through Paul. So he's got the Saints winning the NFC South plus 400. He's got the Jets at plus 180. He's got a parlay where he's got the Lions, the 49ers, the Texans, and Chiefs all winning at plus 875. And he's got the Chiefs winning the AFC at plus 325 and then winning the Super Bowl at plus 550. I don't know if you got much to add there, Paul. I think you've mentioned a few of them teams.
Maybe I think it's just the Saints one. Yeah, Saints plus for the third favourites to win that division. I think all the the three teams apart from the Panthers, the Falcons, Bucks, and the Saints are all much of a muchness. To be fair, so I'll take the odds plus 400. Weirdly, I just trust Derek Carr more than I do Baker, and then I'd trust the Falcons. Might be a weird thing to say. I think the Saints, again, kind of the back end of the year, Saints started to get it together a little bit. I think they won 4 of the last 5, looked a bit more productive on offense, and they've always kind of had really solid, a relatively solid defense, and I imagine it'll be the same again. Again, another one that is really aging, but. Yeah, I think they'll kind of, again, with Dennis Allen, he's pretty decent defensive, head coach defensive, from a defensive perspective. And I think kind of a year of Carr and we'll see more from some of those playmakers, Olave, Rashid Shaheed, so on. Kamara is always pretty reliable. So, yeah, I just think the Saints will win the games they need to in terms of the division matchups to get to 9 wins and win the division. And I think 4-1 is really good value.
You're on mute, Joe.
Joe, the host, on mute. What are you doing?
Sorry about that, guys. So we'll move on to Byron's bets. I think he's mentioned most of these, so I'll just quickly go through them. So he's got the Rams winning the NFC West at plus 350. I think that's a good price, obviously, with the 49ers being the favourites. He's got the Falcons winning the NFC South at minus 130. The Lions winning the North at plus 130. And the Texans winning the AFC South at plus 105. And then he's got the Lions winning the NFC at plus 550, and then winning the Super Bowl at plus 1200. Would you say, Barry, like you think the Lions are winning the Super Bowl, or is just the best price compared to the other teams and how it all fits in?
Chiefly, I think they are my Super Bowl favourite, period. I was really pleased to see they were 1,200 as well. I'm not sure where I expected them to be, really, but I thought it'd be single digits, like 800 or 600 maybe. Again, I just think they're so well built, and I think they're going to go in as the number 1 seed because not that they have an easy path to it, certainly. I think they're in a tough division, but I love that they play so many games indoors. I love that Ben Johnson stayed. I love that Dan Campbell will constantly drive for success and to better and progress the team. And there is a tiny bit of, with the heart rather than the head as well. Not without the head, because I think the lines are really well built. But again, in the year I still expected, I'm going in like hopeless again, like the Cowboys. I think the Lions are going to be my rooting interest. I'm always a big underdog kind of guy, and I know they're not an underdog now, but the Lions are an NFL underdog in history. So, there's so much I love about this team that I really think they can do it. I think they could have won the Super Bowl last year, truthfully, if they'd got there. I just think the sky's the limit and wheels up for the Lions.
And similar with the Rams, is it more the price, or do you actually think they can outlast what basically the 49ers is, and the Seahawks who you've mentioned, but with plus 350?
Yeah, I have the Rams at 13-4, the Niners at 12-5, and Seahawks 11-6. So I think it could be a division that comes down to, those matchups between each other. And I trust Sean McVay an awful lot. If Matthew Stafford stays fit, I think that's really the big issue here for me. So between the price and the fact I have them just 1 game ahead of the Niners, until Trent Williams is done, I'm going to have a little niggle about the Niners being number 1 seeds. I have no doubt the Niners make the playoffs. Like I have no. Kyle Shanahan's an incredible coach. obviously, but so is McVay. So yeah, giving them a plus 350 in what I think is kind of a 3-horse race, maybe a 2-horse race ultimately. Seahawks fall a little game or two behind. I just think it's a really good price for a really good team.
Yeah, I think it's great odds. Obviously, no Donald hangover, and hopefully Puka's fit for the year. So we'll move on to my bets. I've got the Eagles winning the NFC East. I'm definitely pretty confident they're going to bounce back and have a good year. I've got the Bills winning the AFC East at plus 170. Again, it's confidence that they've done that, they've been there, done that. I've got the Bengals winning the AFC North. I feel like it's their time now or never. Again, I feel like it's if Burrows can stay as fit. And I think a few of the teams might drop back a little bit. I have a little parlay with the Lions winning the NFC North and the Chiefs winning the AFC West at plus 222. I just think both of them teams are super strong and heavily favourite to win that division. I've got the Bengals winning the AFC at plus 700. As I mentioned before, I think it's their time. And I've got the 49ers winning the Super Bowl at plus 550. Just because if it's anyone but the Chiefs, I feel like the Niners would win. But if the Chiefs make it, it's definitely a three-peat. So they're my bets. I'll quickly touch on the Bills just because I know, Byron, you had him not making the playoffs. I think for me, when you even look at last year, I think the squad is not as good, but Diggs was after 4 or 5 games, he was in the wilderness, hardly played. Talk about the defensive pieces they've lost. Obviously, Matt Milano being injured, that's not great, but they didn't have a lot of them players last year with injuries and they still made it. I just think when you've got a top 2 or 3 quarterback who plays like Josh Allen, he'll somehow get them over the line. And with, I mentioned the Jets, I don't think it's going to be as good. And the Dolphins, with their injuries, might struggle. I do like that plus 170 for them to win the AFC East.
I think it's a good bet. I'm big on the Bills as well. I've got them. I think I've got the Jets as a tiebreaker, so I've got them kind of neck and neck. So the Jets and the Bills, but I just lean to the Jets on a tiebreaker. But yeah, I think just Diggs gone is going to open up that offense. I think Keon Coleman's going to be a real important piece. I think we're going to see Kincaid make a huge step to be kind of a real menace. And James Cook had a monster year last year. I think he's going to take it to that step further. So I think actually Diggs has been a bit of an anchor holding him back, which is crazy to say for a regular 1,000-yard receiver, isn't it, as well? But I think just the focus and it feels just like it's him at the detriment of the team as opposed to benefiting the team. Then I think it's just going to unlock everything else for the Bills. So I'm expecting them to go really well.
Nice. So let's move on to, so we've done the teams, their records and where they'll end up. Let's talk about the individual awards. So we've each sent in who we think are going to win these categories, and we've done, some of them we've done more than one. So we'll start with the MVP. So as usual, it's the quarterback award, and we've all gone quarterbacks. So Paul's he's gone for Rodgers to bounce back and to win that MVP. He's got a plus 2,000. Byron's got Goff at plus 2,500. And I've got Joe Burrows with the shortest odds in between us three at plus 900. So me and Byron was talking about this. It looks like the odds have dropped quite a lot for Goff, surprisingly. Our Bet365 is at plus 1,800. So as we always say, shop around for the best odds until someone starts sponsoring us. So yeah, Byron, you liking the plus 2.5? I think you mentioned it was at BK. Is that where the odds were? I think that's a really good, like you said, with the indoor. So I think it's a nice price.
Yeah, and again, I will stop waxing Liverpool about the Lions constantly, but I don't know if I have too many more categories. But again, I think he's just primed to put up yards. And it is a narrative for your award. If there's any kind of doubt in it, I think the Lions are going to be the number 1 seed. To me, it just spells out Jared Goff MVP.
Nice. We'll talk about the offensive player of the year. So Paul's is going all Jets. Paul's going double Jets. It's going to be a huge rewards evening. And funnily enough, we've all gone running backs, which none of us gone wide receivers. So Paul's gone for
Breece Hall.
Who do you go? Breece Hall. That is who you've gone for at plus 1,400. Byron's gone for, he's given two, so he's gone Devon A-Chain at plus 6,000 and Kenneth Walker at plus 7,500. On Bet365, just run out there, he's plus 10,000. So you could get some more money there. Thanks. And I've gone for Bijan Robinson at plus 1,400 and Saquon at plus 2,200. So out of them, Paul, any of them like interesting? Or any?
I think Saquon's one that's real interesting. In our NFC East preview, I can't remember what I had, but I had a Saquon bet that I've ended up backing away from. That I shouted out. I'll try and find it. I think it might have even been that. What was it? What did I have? It was, but yeah, I think Saquon's on for a huge year. I think it might have been our bets the future. I think it was 40. It might have been 40-1 to be offensive player of the year at that point. So yeah, it's coming a lot. I really like that shout, Joe. I think he can just have a huge year, kind of that bell cow role for the Eagles. Behind that, what he'll be able to do behind that offensive line, I think, given what he had to put up with the Giants, I think he could be on for a huge year. The two long shots are real interesting. I think the Devon A-Chain's tough just because you've now got another guy back there that they've drafted, haven't they? And who's another track star. So I think it's going to be tough for him to get enough touches, I think, to be able to stand out and make him a front runner for this. And then, I'm in on the Jets, but I think Breece Hall, in a terrible situation last year, was a beast. We've seen what he can do before. And I think they're going to be pretty balanced. And I think he's just going to have a huge, huge year. I mean, he's going, where's he going in fantasy, Byron? 2, 3 in non-super flex?
Yeah, Breece Hall, in the top 5, certainly. Between Lamb, Hill, and then one of your 3 running backs, McCaffrey, Robinson, Breece Hall,
And if he returns the production at that level of kind of ADP sort of suggests, then he's going to have a monster year, isn't he?
Do you know how many carries he had inside the 5-yard line last year?
Not very many, because the Jets didn't get there, did they?
One. So you think how good he was last year just in fantasy with 1 carry in the 5-yard line?
Yeah.
He was probably Zach Wilson, so it's probably winning the 5-yard line that much.
Yeah. Well, not the opposing 5-yard line.
Well, exactly. I do just worry about them long shots just because I think my take with all these awards is very story driven. So I think someone like Bijan and Saquon and the Jets themselves, they always have the leg up. I feel like Kenneth Walker and H.M. would have to go above and beyond to be like, we got to give him that award, rather than if they have the same like stats and kind of season like Saquon as H.M., they'll probably give it to Saquon just because it's, he's come with the story from the Giants being a high draft pick. But, from them prices, you might as well. And they might, you never know if there's some down years and some wide receivers and they go off. Certainly a great shout. So let's do the defensive player of the year. So it was a surprise here that you both went for the same long shot, or one of the long shots. So Paul went for Max Crosby at plus 750, and he went for Will Anderson Jr. at plus 3,000, which is the same as what Byron went. He also went double Houston and went Daniil Hunter at plus 3,500. And I went with the shorter odds, and I mentioned in our preview of the AFC North, I've gone TJ Watt plus 550, just the storyline and everything what happened last year. And I've gone Aiden Hutchinson at plus 1,000. I think similar to Byron, if the Lions go big, he could be a good shout if he gets them stack numbers up. So I'll throw it up to either of you. Will Anderson, what's making you choose Will Anderson at plus 3,000?
Sorry, you go ahead.
God, yeah, for me, it was just I got robbed on Jalen Carter last year off a defensive rookie of the year. So
yeah, they gave it to the best rookie defender. It was annoying. He shone as a rookie. I think obviously they lose Jonathan Grenard and get Daniel Hunter in. I think that's an upgrade for Houston. I think another year with D'Amico Ryans as a defensive head coach. I kind of think the sky's the limit on a lot of ways for Houston. But I love that pass rush pairing, and I think it's going to be hard to slow either of them down. So I think there's going to be a big bump for Anderson in the sack totals. I think they can both get 15 and above. Maybe not they both end up getting both 15, but I think they're both in line to get into that 15, 16, 17, even if they don't actually both get it. I I think the potential's there for either of them to get it. I guess it's probably a better way of saying that. I will say my sheet was updated first. So, I had the Anderson call in immediately. Paul kind of looked at what I had and then acted second, I think. So, yeah, I just think... And Daniel Hunt has had those high sack total seasons as well. So, would it be out of the realm possibility with Will Anderson on the other side for Daniel Hunt to get to 20? I don't think so. So, if you're telling me there's a player who could get 20 sacks and I'm getting him at 3,500, yes, please, ultimately. On a team that I think is going to be... kind of talked about this with Max Crosby the other day, who I think the Raiders are going to have a low win total. It's a lot easier to tell a story of the defensive player of the year on a 13-win team than a 6-win team.
Yeah, I certainly like the odds of if I had to choose, I'd choose Danielle Hunter, and the fact that he's got it's higher odds. I certainly like that one because he's one of the players who's gone under the radar, and I think if it's another big year on a big team, they'll be like, and look what he did for the Minnesota the last few years. He's had monster numbers. He's one of them superstars which it doesn't get talked about enough. I think he's similar to like Josh Hines, Allen, like them kind of players who has big numbers, but unfortunately the kind of team they play for certainly affects, and he might not have the big personality some of the other ones. But yeah, I certainly like them odds. So let's move on to the offensive rookie player of the year. We've actually all gone different, which is surprising. So Paul's gone. He's got Jaden Daniels, the Commanders QB at plus 600, and he's got Xavier Worthy, the Chiefs wide receiver, plus 1,800. Byron's gone Marvin Harrison at plus 650, and Malik Neighbors at plus 1,400. I've gone Bo Nix at plus 800, quarterback at Denver, and Brian Thomas Jr., the Jacksonville wide receiver, at plus 3,000. We'll start off with you, Byron, since you've got the two wide receivers that which would take in the top two. I was surprised how big difference the odds were. If you had to choose, would it be the higher odds neighbors? Because I've guessed upon they both don't play for great teams, so
exactly, yeah. So I don't think it's going to be one where like I'm saying for the DPOY, where a 13-win team really helps. I don't think either of those teams are getting to 7 wins. So, I think I would bet Malik Neighbors if I could only have one here. I think 14-1 for, before he was drafted, I compared him to Odell Beckham at LSU, and then obviously he's ended up in the same place. And I think what really helps his case is there's no one else to throw to in New York. Even Saquon isn't there anymore. Devin Singletary is not Saquon Barkley out of the backfield. Darren Waller's retired. Number 2 receiver is Wandale Robinson or Darius Slayton. Very mid options at best. And Malik Neighbors gets open against everybody. And he catches everything. So I think he can instantly hit the ground running and be the Giants offense. So I think he can put up the numbers that regardless of how many wins the Giants get, put him in contention for this immediately. And I think 1,400 is a great price to do that. Yeah,
I think he's definitely going to have the splashier players, which might help him. Paul, you took the second favorite, Jaden Daniels. It's actually come down. It's come down to plus 500 the last couple of days. Caleb's obviously the favorite. It does normally go to a quarterback. Why do you think Daniels would take it over Caleb? Is it just the odds? That's why you've chosen Jaden Daniels?
Yeah, and I think potentially as much as kind of the Bears should, he's got the weapons around him and they don't have in the Commanders. I just think what we've seen from him last year, he's going to do a lot with his legs, and I think he's going to, they want to probably try and train that coach out of that a bit. We saw Anthony Richardson; it was a killer for him last year. Can you survive that? But this kid's just got big play after big play after big play in him with his legs and with his arm, and I don't know. I just think it's going to be very eye-catching, and he could put fairly decent numbers. The Commanders not actually do very well, and him still get get award recognition. I think it is. It's probably realistically probably too short a price, but I just think he's going to have a monster year. He does take chances, but I think there's also a bit with him where he could get on a roll as well. And you know what? A good season for the Commanders might be 7 or 8 wins, realistically. And if he could, be the driving force and delivering that and give them hope, he'd do okay numbers wise, and that would probably put him in the conversation.
And probably reverse that if the Bears win like 7 or 8 games. That might be a disappointing season. So
Exactly,
definitely expect. And I do like your Xavier Worthy pick just because he's on a good team and he could have some monster numbers.
This kid's got a chance because Patrick Mahomes is throwing him the ball. It's very much as simple as that.
Simple as that. So I went Bo Nix just similar just because it's a QB award, and I just feel like he's going to pad up them stats. And if the other two don't have the kind of year people expect him, where they're expecting him to be the next generational talent, if they have a bit down years, I think Bo Nix could just have an average year, and you look at like, how's he got that many yards and that many touchdowns, and it's just that kind of dink and dunk. And if the Broncos, if they do sneak into the playoffs somehow or win 8 or 9 games, then that's going to be like, oh wow, Bo Nix is the next, maybe not the next big thing, but like a starting quarterback, and that might give him a boost. And I just like the reports what's coming out of Jacksonville about Brian Thomas. It sounds like he's having a good year. Him and Christian Kirk might be fighting who's the number 1 wide receiver. And again, they're a team where I couldn't quite put my finger where they're going to end. They could have quite a big floor and ceiling. They could make the playoffs and win that division, but they also could bottom out at 5 or 6 wins, depending on how Trevor plays. So, at them odds, I think he could have a big year as well. And there's always someone surprising who comes from nowhere has a big year.
I think he's a great bet at 30 to 1, Joe. It wasn't on my shortlist. I think Neighbours is such a good bet, truthfully, but Brian Thomas has looked really good in the preseason. And I know Trevor Lawrence has been up and down, but until he got injured last year, I think he was much more good than bad. If he stays fit, I think that 30 to 1 is going to look really short come, November. So it's going to look really long. It'll be much shorter come November, should I say. So, I think that's a really good find at 30 to 1 there for Thomas.
Nobody want to take plus 5,000 on Louis Rees-Zammit, no?
Only 50 to 1? No. Add a 0 and I'm probably still no.
I know.
Well, it is a wide receiver award. Oh, no, it's a quarterback award.
Well, you never know. You might go to another team and be their quarterback. You change your positions, see where it ends up. Cool. Let's move on to the defensive rookie of the year. It looks like Paul's been copying Byron's sheet again, as they both got Jared Verse at plus 1,000. Oh, I think Byron had it at plus 1,100. So sorry about Byron, and so DK's got a higher price.
Can I just jump in a quick second? So go back to our NFL Bets to the Future episode back at the end of February or March, and we were doing the bets then, and I said, when did we do it? April, whenever it was. End of April, yes, we did. Yeah, it was after the draft, obviously. I was Jared Verse, defensive rookie of the year then, and I've not wavered since.
Well, I had it on the sheet first, so you think you would have got that sorted if you were so confident.
It's your own fault, Paul, for taking too long. And I just rounded up. I've got Ryan Murphy the second at plus 1,000. So we're all liking the NFC West. Is there anyone else who you thought about? I had a quick look at the cornerbacks. I just think, it always feels like a defensive end, unless a cornerback comes in who's top end talent, who's a shut down number 1 corner. And I don't know if there's actually any of them in this draft to start with. I think there's a few of them going to turn into that, but I don't know if I don't see like a Sauce Gardner where it's like, he's guaranteed to be a lockdown corner. He's going to show everyone. So I think it's going to be the big guys in front.
And weirdly, the one I thought about was the Steelers linebacker, Peyton Wilson, because I think he could end up with like 120 plus tackles or something. Like he's just everywhere. So he could kind of rack up those numbers. And if nobody else is particularly dominant, he could kind of get the award.
Yeah, the other one I was thinking of, but he's not had a good enough training camp. I just like the way he could be used, is Cooper DeJean. 35 to 1, but I don't think he's going to stand out enough on the Eagles this year, so I didn't end up betting him. But he was in my mind. He's a player I'm really interested to see how he adapts to the NFL, because I think he's certainly got that Kyle Hamilton / you'll see him on every play type ability. I'm just not sure if it'll be there as a rookie. So seems to have had a bit of an up and down training camp in preseason. I think he's had an injury as well, so not ideal for hitting the ground running.
Just a quick one with him. Are we going DeJean or DeJean?
I think it is DeJean, and I always say DeJean.
Okay, cool. Just so I know.
Just wants to bring his name in. Just his own namesake, DeJean.
It's a great name. It is a great name, and it's DeJean, Cooper DeJean. Got it.
Nice. So let's move on to the coach of the year. So Paul didn't send any in. Doesn't think this award's gonna doesn't matter.
Not be awarded. It's just not going to be awarded.
Not going to be awarded. No one's going to win it this year. So me and Byron's put some in. So we've helped Paul out. We've given 2 each. So Byron's got Sean McVeigh at plus 3,000 and Mike McDonald at plus 1,000. And funnily enough, yes, we both are in the same division. I've got DeMarco Ryans at Texans and Sean Steichen of the Colts at plus 1,400. DeMarco was plus 1,200. So out of them, Paul, which one are you liking out of the four with me and Byron? Joz?
It's tough, isn't it? Sean McVay, I think the Rams are going to have a real good year. So I like Sean McVay at 31. My problem with it is, and it's probably why he's such long odds, it's almost like he's too good already.
Yeah.
If that makes sense. Yeah. Whereas we typically see this award given to kind of somebody who comes not out of nowhere, or the teams have been particularly bad the year before, and they got to the playoffs last year on a great run to end the season. So yeah, I think it's just tough. To do it, and I'm struggling to see who that team is. Like when I've got my
if you got the Jets at 13 wins, it would
Robert
probably be Bob
Saleh.
Saleh.
Was the one that was going to go on. I was like, I can't put Robert Saleh and have Aaron Rodgers and have Breece Hall. So that's why I didn't do it. But that would be the one based on that. What we tend to see from that award, that would be the one that plays in terms of what I've got, in terms of what the teams, where I see the teams being. So yeah.
Yeah, I think me and Byron talked about at the beginning, just before the pod, about I think Harbaugh would be my pick if I had to actually choose someone, just because of storyline and who Harbaugh is. But he's a favourite. I think it's plus 500. It's pretty low. I think it's him and Eberflus is the
plus
the two favourites. Because I think even if the Chargers win 7 or 8 games and just be respectable, just being Harbaugh and him coming in and the circus around him, it'll be the favourite, but just too short of odds. For
maybe,
me,
we think the Bengals are going to be good. I think between us, maybe Zach Taylor at 25 to 1, but they've had success in the last few years.
Yeah, I think that's the issue with this. Yeah, with this award, it's a story rather than the actual truth. Because Shanahan or Andy Reid or when Belichick was around, would have won it every year. But it's given
Andy Reid 60 to 1. He's a rank outsider, and he's probably the best coach.
It's probably like the most improved. This should be the most improved award.
Yeah.
So it should be. And finally, comeback player of the year. Obviously, they've slightly changed how they're defining this trophy this year. I think it has to be. Is it from injury now? I think that's how they're defining it. Not.
It's not so much like they've changed how they define it. They've actually just finally defined it.
Yeah. Well, there you go. So Paul's gone for Nick Chubb, even though he's going to have the first 4 weeks minimum out at plus 1,000. Byron's gone for Anthony Richardson, who plus 700, which is one of my favourites, just because he always feels like a quarterback kind of award and how I feel about the Colts. But I've gone with Kyler Murray at plus 1,600, because I think if the Cardinals surprise where they actually end up, I don't think they'll make the playoffs, but even if they get to 7 to 9 wins and he hits any of milestones, I think he's a kind of quarterback who could kind of win this award at plus 1,600. Obviously, we haven't picked the favourites, which is Rodgers and Burrows. But yeah, these are the best odds. Anyone got any comments on any of the comeback players here?
Yeah, the reason I just thought Chubb, I don't think that him missing 4 games, not at minimum the first 4 games, I don't think that's going to have a massive bearing on it. I think the Browns are doing the right thing, and sort of, it was horrible, that injury. It was, I think we're surprised that he's going to be playing ever again. It was just awful. But I think he's primed, and you're buying him more time, and I think he's primed to have kind of in a 13-game span, or 12, 13 game span. He could still produce massive per game numbers. And I think you just right, kind of holding him off a bit. You can go with Ford and Deontay Foreman for a bit, and I think he's going to carry a lot of the Browns' hopes towards that back end of the season. But I think Chubb could explode and have kind of a real huge numbers for 13 game or 13 games.
Yeah, it's not the number of games that concerns me. I mean, Joe Flacco won it with 5 games played last year, so Chubb missing 4 games isn't an issue. sadly, I really worry about what shape Nick Chubb's going to come back in, because that was such a brutal injury. And obviously, he's a running back and not getting any younger period. I would have liked a bit of longer odds, truthfully, for him to win it. Just because I hope I'm wrong, because he's one of my favourite running backs to watch. He's so smooth, he's so beastly, he's great, Nick Chubb. But I worry about how he comes back. But, that's why it would be such a good comeback, obviously. And Kyler Murray, I think the only thing that hurts him is that he came back and looked good last season. I think if he only played like one game at the end of last season, I'd love those odds. I certainly don't dislike them. And I think Kyler Murray could be an incredible fantasy player this year, even if, the Cardinals win total isn't high. I think he could shine as a top 5 quarterback, top 6 quarterback in the league. I think the only thing that dings him a little in my head is that he came back and looked pretty good already, which might impact voters. I'm not 100% sure how they always pick this thing, but that was the only kind of like slight negative in my opinion on him. But in pure, him coming back fully fit and, being a proper runner again, I think he could shine certainly.
There's one name that I looked at and I thought, and it's there's a lot of them there at 100 to 1 or plus 10,000. Trayvon Diggs is very interesting on the fact that he could get double-digit picks. Trayvon Diggs. Maybe a bit more difficult now that Bland's going to be missing the first part of the year. If Trayvon Diggs came back and led the league in interceptions, why not him?
Because he'll probably lead the league in amount of yards given up as well.
Nobody cares about that.
Interceptions carry the weight, yeah. If that happened, I would certainly think it'd be a good price for it.
And at 100 to 1, he's got like the personality. He's got the
same price as Carson Wentz.
Yeah, he's got the cute kid. Exactly. He's got the cute kid that helps him social media wise. I think that's real good value. 100. He's someone who missed. How many games did he even play a game last year? Did he?
I think he did start the season, but I'm not 100% sure.
3 or 4 weeks maybe, and then he blew his knee in training, didn't he? So 100 to 1 seems crazy when Carson Wentz is also 100 to 1.
Yeah, and Marcus Mariota.
Mark Andrews was in a car crash a couple of weeks ago. Does he count? I think he's on there at 100 to 1 as well.
He also missed a lot of the season last year as well, through injury. And there was one that kind of caught my eye, but again, I'm not betting it. I don't think he's going to win it. But a player that I really like, Tank Dell, 6,500, 65 to 1. He's so explosive. And obviously broke his leg.
Yeah, is the issue because he broke his leg right at the end, so he doesn't feel like.
Yeah, I don't think it was right at the end. I think it was like week 11-ish. So
okay.
I might be wrong though, to be fair. There was still a few weeks to go, certainly.
Mm-hmm.
And then he got shot in the off-season as well, which I know isn't a comeback thing because he hasn't missed any more games because of it. But it was more just like trying to look through the list of like players who actually were injured and missed games. It was week 11 he got injured. And then because the players who were just coming back from like Justin Fields is 50 to 1. Like, what's he coming back from not being good? Like, that isn't how they're awarding the award anymore. So those kind of players just get out the list. Muggs will still bet it, so I understand why they don't. But Russell Wilson, 35 to 1, he's not coming back from anything other than embarrassment. So, I was looking for players who were actually injured and would be coming back. It's like Tank Dell, 65 to 1. TJ Watt, 75 to 1 as well. Again, didn't probably miss enough of the year to be impactful, but I just think for actually coming back, notable names anyway. But it didn't make the sheet, so.
There you go. Right, let's move on to the player or team stats. So this is our remaining bets, and we'll go through each person at a time. So we'll go with Paul. He hasn't got too many, so he should be fairly quick. He's got Carr to be over 4,000 passing yards at plus 500. He's got Bijan over 1,000 yards. You didn't say if I was rushing. Oh, sorry.
It's Joe Mixon over 1,000.
Joe Mixon, sorry. I do apologize. I was looking at the wrong sheet. You got Joe Mixon over 1,000. Is it rushing yards, Paul, or like total yards?
Rushing yards, yeah.
Rushing yards at plus 190. You've got the Titans at the worst record at plus 900. And you got... Did you have the Colts? I think I had that one. And you had another one. I'll figure that out quickly. So just talk about Joe Mixon.
Yeah, I took the Colts most sacks. I flagged
Okay.
it in AFC South. They got 53. It was a franchise record last year. And I just think they'll kind of improve again. You need to get to 60. 60 is kind of the number. So I don't see it being too big of a leap. And we thought it to be, one of you guys mentioned it before, that front seven is pretty good. So yeah, I think they can kind of go a little bit better. They've got, obviously they've added Latu. The first defensive player taken off the board in the draft. To that, he was a beast at UCLA. I think he can put up some decent sack numbers, and that will help that. And yeah, somewhere if you get late 50s, you've got a chance. So yeah, 22-1, I thought was really good value. Titans, yeah, it's high because I think it's probably going to be the Panthers, but I like the value of the Titans at 9-1. I just think it's going to be. Yeah, I just think it's going to be a really tough year for them. A lot relies on, we saw good and bad from Will Levis last year. And yeah, I'm not convinced in the Mayo man as yet. Not like I was after he threw those 4 touchdowns in his first start. But yeah, not massively convinced. And I just struggle to see kind of playmakers and stuff elsewhere. So yeah, tough for the Titans. And Joe Mixon, yeah, he managed to get just over 1,000 yards with the Bengals last year, and they obviously struggled offensively at times when after Burrow went down. He's at Texans, yeah, which is why I took him. I think Devin Singletary had a relatively good year last year in that, and I think Mixon's still got a bit of life left in him yet, and he'll get his touches, so I think he'll get enough opportunity to get to 1,000 yards, and just hopefully he'll deliver. And it was just short of 2-1, so it were good odds. And yeah, I think Kyle will have a good year, a relatively good year. He's got over 4,000 yards, I think 3 or 4 times before, and not necessarily great situations in Oakland and Las Vegas. So yeah, I think for me, Carr 4,000 at 5-1 seemed really good value.
Yeah, I like a couple of them. I think Texans, that's probably the one weakness. I think it's inside running and if Mixon can stay fit. But like you said, I don't think the Bengals O-line was any much better, and he still managed to get 1,000 yards. So yeah, I do like that Mixon and the Carr one. And you'll see how much I like the Colts one when we talk about mine. Cool, we'll move on to Byron. So yeah, Byron's got a few. So I'll go through the players to start with. So you've got Devin Achane to score 7+ receiving touchdowns at plus 1,200. You've also got Achane over 1,000 rushing yards at plus 330. You've got Geno Smith to throw over 4,500 passing yards at plus 2,000. You've got Deshaun Watson the other way going under 3,300.5 passing yards at minus 120. You've got Malik Neighbors having the most receptions at plus 7,500. And finally, you've got a combo of Goff, Caleb, and Geno all throwing over 4,000 passing yards at 4,300, 43-1. So, Byron, do you want to talk about any of them ones? What you thinking was?
Yeah, so I love the Seahawks passing attack this year. I think Ryan Grubb is such an improvement on Shane Waldron. I am a forever Geno stan since he got to Seattle, certainly. I think he's constantly played like a top 12, 15 quarterback. Since he's been there, I have no worries of Sam Howell at all. I think JSN's in for a big second year. Lockett isn't dust, and I think DK Metcalf might be one of the best fantasy picks this year there is. I also obviously already highlighted Kenneth Walker as a potential OPOY candidate. I just think if that O-line stays intact for the Seahawks, I think they're just going to be one of the must-watch offenses in the NFL this year. I think the sky's the limit for them. Devon Achane as well. He's just, again, a bit of a fantasy lean here on this, but he's just a player that can win at any given week. He has such upside. There is talk of them using more as a receiver. They've done so in the preseason successfully. And you get the ball in his hands and he's going to score touchdowns. It's kind of as simple as that. Over 1,000 rushing yards, I kind of thought was just a bit crazy, considering, he doesn't need to do that much to get there. Again, on this offense, he got 800 yards in 11 games last year. I think Raheem Mostert is kind of a bit of a mirage last year. 21 touchdowns he's not going to repeat that. Obviously, that's not to be expected that he repeats that. But I think Achane's the best running back on the team. I think he has such huge potential any given week to break off 200 yards at plus 330 to get over 1,000 yards. I just think he is betting on him to play 12 or 13 games. Any running back can get injured, but I think, HN isn't a player that's going to get 18 touches a game. You don't want him to, because he will get hurt, but I trust Mike McDaniel to scheme him open, to scheme him correctly. And it's kind of a bet on McDaniel as much as it is on HN, truthfully. So that's why I think the 7+ receiving touchdowns is such a good price at 12-1, because outside of Hill and Jalen Waddle, HN might be their third target. Jonnu Smith has come in as tight end. They've never really used tight ends. I think he's an upgrade on Durham Smythe, but okay. OBJ, I wouldn't be surprised retires before he plays again. And I certainly don't think he's going to be a big weapon. Again, McDaniel already came out and said he needs to get on the same page as Tua before he'll be playing, regardless of his injury status. So it doesn't sound like he's going to be rushed into action anytime soon. And Deshaun Watson, as the season's got closer and closer, I have got the Browns in the playoff, but the Browns situation, I think, just stinks more and more as it gets closer and closer. And the Browns did take 4 quarterbacks from cutdown day. They have since released Tyler Huntley. There was talk might trade Jameis, and his shoulder's just hurting again. It doesn't feel like he's physically ready to play football a full season. So whether Jameis just takes the job and keeps it, like Flacco did at the end of last season. I know Deshaun Watson was out injured at that point, but who's to say he doesn't get injured again when it shows that he can't play at a high level? I don't think it's out of the realm possibility. And if Nick Chubb does come back and plays well as the heart of the offense, then I don't want Deshaun Watson slinging the ball. So I think the under 33 is a bet on, or bet against Deshaun Watson's talent and against Deshaun Watson's health and ability to hold on to the job, period. And the last one, most receptions, Malik Neighbors is obviously a huge long shot because he's a rookie and he's not on a great team. But again, I already touched on it. He gets open against everybody. He catches everything that comes his way, and he's the only target on the team. A 30% target share is not out of the realm of possibility as a rookie. And I want to be in on Malik Neighbors wherever I can be, truthfully. So,
what's he going to need realistically? Is that somewhere close to 120 maybe, or 125?
Yeah, that's the range, 130-ish, I'd even say.
Yeah, okay.
So,
CD last year when it had 135.
Yeah, it's certainly not it's 75-1 for a reason.
Yeah.
So it's not a gimme. I don't know when a rookie's ever done it, if ever. But we've got 135, 128, 145 Cooper Cup. I don't think we're hitting 140s, but if you can get towards 120, I think you're in play, certainly. And again, being the only target on that team, if he plays 17 games, I think he's going to get so heavily targeted that he's automatically going to end up in contention.
Yeah, and I just run through your remaining team stats bets. So you've got the Falcons to be eliminated in a wildcard round at plus 200. I do like that one. The 49ers to be a wildcard seed at plus 400, and that seed to be the number 5, and that's plus 750. You've got the Texans to get the most team sacks at plus 1700. And you've gone all in on the Eagles. You've got them to start 5-0 at plus 700 and to be 6-0 against the NFC East at plus 1200. Yeah, you know what? I like all of them. Obviously not the 49ers ones, but the rest of them. Yes, some of the Falcons one because I think I have them winning the division as well. But yeah, I can see them being an early candidate to be shipped off straight away. You got any points on them, Paul? Any ones you like?
I think the Niners ones are interesting. They're good prices, but I just don't see a way they don't win the division. The Eagles ones are pretty solid. I think looking at the Eagles schedule, and yeah, I think we've seen this. The Cowboys and Eagles have split for a number of years, haven't they? And I think maybe that's time to change. So yeah, I'm certainly not confident going against the Eagles right now to start the year. So we'll see. But yeah, I think the Eagles bets are both pretty solid.
Nice, and we'll finally move on to mine. Which gets its own page. Yeah,
you got your own page.
Well, it's because Byron's a lot bigger than Byron's a lot bigger than I expected. So it was even me or Byron gets his own page, and if you make the slides, you get.
First time you've heard that, is it, Byron?
So we'll just go through mine. So I'll do it all at once. So I've got Jared Goff having the most passing yards at plus 900, and I've got St. Brown. I'm on St. Brown to get the most receiving yards at plus 1200. I think I had that in the NFC North preview. I've got Mahomes to get over 33.5 passing touchdowns at plus 110. I just think he's going to have a huge year. I think he's going to bounce back and lots of points for the Chiefs. I've gone for Sam Darnold with the most interceptions during the season at plus 2,500. I managed to hit that last year with Howell. So I just look for a QB who's doesn't protect the ball well, but will probably play most of the games in the season because they haven't got a decent backup. And I came to Sam Darnold with that. I've gone for the kickers, showing some kickers some love. So I've got Jake Elliott scoring the most regular season kicking points at plus 1,200. I just think the Eagles are going to score a lot of points this year and are going to move the ball fairly well. So I feel like he's going to get quite a few points. I've gone for a triple QB over 4,000 passing yards into Byron, but I've gone for Jordan Love, for Purdy, and for Stafford at plus 989. All of them hit except Stafford. I think he was about 40 yards under the 4,000 mark, but I think he had a few injuries and he rested on the week 17. So hopefully it hits that before they rest him. And then I've got two team one. I've got the Chiefs scoring the most points in the regular season at plus 900. And I've copied Paul with the Colts to have the most sacks in the regular season at 2,200. Just
did
because.
Did you shout the Raiders out, or was it in the last episode?
Yeah, in AFC West once. I did like the Raiders, but when I went back and looked at it all, because I'm so high in the Colts, I just think they're going to be a monster front. And at 2,200, I think they're plus 5,000 the Raiders. So I was flipping between either of them once, and I went with the Colts.
Absolutely love that Sam Darnold shout. On DraftKings, he's 10-1 or plus 1,000. So plus 2,500, yes, please. He was on he was too short of a price for me, so that's why he didn't make my list. But yeah, 2,500, goodness me, I think that's an incredible pick. Yeah, and Mahomes one, I think if he plays the season, that's buying money at plus 110. And obviously, I love Goff, most passing yards at plus 900 because I have him for basically everything else. So Amon-Ra, most receiving yards as well in what is a bit of a weird wide receiver market, I think, this year. Again, looking at it, fantasy, CeeDee Lamb's had no training camp. Jamar Chase, no training camp. Brandon Ayuk, no training camp. Justin Jefferson, a quarterback who's going to throw the most interceptions. Tyreek Hill, maybe, sure. But he has Jalen Waddle to play with. Amon-Ra, why not 1,200? Love that price.
Yeah, especially being indoor that much. I think when you brought that up, that changed a few of my bets. So, yeah, big on the Lions. Right, so that's all our bets. So we'll quickly go through our season predictions as we did last year, and we can see how we get on. And after a few weeks, all would be not doing too well as usual. So let's do the NFC first. So unsurprisingly, we all went the Eagles to win the division. The North, we all went the Lions. The South, me and Byron went the Falcons, and Paul went the Saints, which is how we talked about. And me and Paul went for the 49ers, and the Byron went for the Rams, which we chat about. So the interesting ones are the wildcards. So Paul's got wildcard one as the Rams. Byron's got the 49ers, and I've got the Packers. Wildcard two, Paul's got the Cowboys, Byron's got the Bears, and I've got the Seahawks. And finally, the third wildcard in FC, Paul's gone the Packers, Byron's gone the Seahawks, and I've gone the Cowboys, which means no Rams. Let's quickly just 2 seconds on Packers, Paul. Obviously, you've got the main, Byron's got the Bears in. Feeling fairly confident that the Packers are going to continue where they left off last year?
Yeah, I think so. I think we've not talked about the Packers at all, have we? Really, since in this, and yeah, I think they'll be good. They got 9-8 last year. I've got another 2 wins at 11 wins, and behind the Lions in the NFC North, I think they'll be a wild card 7th there, but I think they'll be a very comfortable. So 9 wins ain't going to get you as a wild card in the NFC for me. I just think that young team's just going to take another step. I think they're just going to keep progressing. Love showed enough shaky early on, much better down the stretch. Very good in the playoffs. I think they're going to be a pretty solid team, and double-digit wins and in as a wild card.
Yeah, so the teams, there were 6 teams who none of us picked, so some of them are not surprised. The Commanders, Giants, Vikings, Panthers, Buccaneers, and the Cardinals. Quickly, Byron, if you had to choose one of the 6 who you think will ruin all of our predictions, who would you have as the number 1 out of them 6?
Tampa by a million miles, I think.
Yeah, I just think with that division, I still think they can sneak it in. And yeah, I think the other ones, I'm still sure about the Vikings, but yeah, fairly confident with the rest of them. So let's move on to the AFC. So for the East, Paul and Byron's gone for the Jets. I've gone for the Bills. The North, Paul's gone for the Ravens, and me and Byron's gone the Bengals. South, we've all gone the Texans. And the West, we've all gone the Chiefs. Not surprising whatsoever. The wildcard ones, Paul's gone the Bills to get the first wildcard. Byron's got the Browns. I've got the Ravens. Paul's got the Bengals as the second one. Byron's got the Ravens. I've got the Dolphins. And both of you have got the Dolphins in the wildcard 3. And I've got the Colts. I think we spoke about most of these teams. I'll ask Byron, why are you choosing the Bengals over the Ravens? I think that's really... We haven't touched on the Ravens.
Yeah, I've a few little qualms about the Ravens. I think the O-line potentially could be an issue. Lamar Jackson obviously covers a lot of that, but it is still an issue. And defensively, moving on from, I think Mike Macdonald's I think he's going to be a great head coach. I think he was an incredible defensive coordinator. Zach Orr's a rookie head DC, so we'll have to see. But they also lost a lot of talent, and I'm not sure what they have at edge rusher, really. So, I still do have them as a wild card too. I still have them winning 12 games. So it's certainly not an indictment on the Ravens. Most divisions they would probably win, in my opinion. But I think...
So have you got the Browns at 13 then?
I have them both on 12.
Oh, both at 12 and Bengals on 13. Oh, that's a big win for one division.
Yeah, and I saw even the Steelers have at 8 and 9. So it's a tough division. But I just think the Bengals, they've improved that defensive backfield from what they needed to do last year, which was a huge issue. Burrow's fit. Jamar Chase is kind of weighing on my mind a little bit, but I just have them taking the division. I think they're just slightly more well-rounded than the Ravens right now and the Browns.
Yeah. So the 7 teams none of us talked about. So Patriots, Steelers, Jags, Titans, Chargers, Broncos, and Raiders. We'll go to you, Paul, this time. Any of them where you worried that it's going to ruin your prediction?
Out of them 7, the one that would be, I guess, the Steelers crashing the wild card somehow. That would be the one. We've seen them. They were a 10-win team last year, so certainly
feels like that's the Steelers' motto right now: crashing the wild card somehow.
Yeah.
Losing the wild card and the middling draft.
That's basically it. Yeah. So I think that would be the one. I mean, I've got the AFC so skewed towards kind of those top 5 teams who I see it as the Jets, the Ravens, Bills, Bengals, and Chiefs. That. Yeah, they're the only teams that I've got those 5 teams getting to 13 or more wins. So it's very, very skewed, my AFC view. Outside of that, there's only one other team that gets a winning record, 2 other teams that get a winning record as a result. So yeah, it's very, very skewed. So, but yeah, the Steelers would be the one I think that could gate crash it just by finding a way to win 9 or 10 games.
Yeah, I would say mine's probably it would be the Jags. Just because I talked about, I feel like they've still got a high ceiling with Trevor if he turns it on. Yeah. And just the Chargers, just because it's hardball and somehow we managed to turn terrible teams into good teams. And if they go on a roll, which we talked about their schedule, that 4th-place schedule, that they might somehow do a Steelers. But that's about them. So then finally, our Super Bowl prediction in New Orleans, which I'm guessing we all would love to go to. It would be one of the best places to see a Super Bowl.
Remember it.
Yeah, good point. So Paul's got the Chiefs versus the Lions. Surprisingly, Byron's gone the same as well. So some copying over here. I'm not going to claim who copied who, but he's got the Chiefs versus the Lions. I've got the Bengals versus the 49ers, which I mentioned before. And the winner, we've all... Byron and Paul said the Chiefs, and I said the 49ers.
Joe, he definitely said the Lions.
Yeah, I picked the Lions. Yeah.
You did actually, yeah. I've read that wrong.
Hopefully, I
just
filled the
thought- yeah,
cheating right, but I did put the Lions.
I just thought you two were just copying each other, so I just assumed that you copied each other at the end as well.
No,
Do
Just
apologise.
point out my season predictions
There you
and my bet win first. So,
he's copying anyway.
well, exactly.
there you
We
go.
know who's copying here. Thank you, Joe. That's beautiful.
I've
No,
got the
it's-
same,
Byron's
the
gonna
same
line.
4 for the championship games as well. So I've got the Chiefs Ravens again and the Lions Niners again on the other side. So yeah, I think there's going to be a lot of repetition from 2023.
Going to be a lot of repetition from Byron to Paul as well. It seems like so. How much of you betting with your heart rather than your head here, Joe?
I think it's like
I say it as if
50-50.
it's I say it as if it's the
Yeah.
Titans. The
think
Niners
it's-
are a
because
dominant
yeah.
team.
I won the Niners last year. I had them to win against the Chiefs. I just think this has to be the year. Obviously, it doesn't mean it's going to work out. I still don't think the NFC is the monster the AFC is. So I think if they get things clicking, I always worry. I'm always a pessimist when it comes to sports. But yeah, I just
Clearly.
think the squad they've got and I just think as long as they're not playing the Chiefs in the final, I'll feel confident that they'd win. And I'm hoping for Bengals Texans AFC conference. That's what I'm hoping for.
Yeah.
Either Texans or Bengals knock out the Chiefs in the divisional. So there you go. That's our season predictions. So we made it, lads. Hopefully we made plenty of money for people and for ourselves. And next week we start with the week 1 preview. And you'll see we'll be doing our fourfold, but changing it up to do a draft this year. So, so Paul can't copy Byron or vice versa. With the picks, it has to be individual. We'll also have a special guest who will be doing a fourfold and and just be chatting either their team or whoever the week is about. And we've got plenty of bets. Follow us on all the social medias. You see, all the bets we say in the podcast, all the extra ones as well. We'll be putting some out for. We are aiming to get every single primetime game and the Sunday slates to give us our best bets and hopefully win your money and get more than 50%, which we did manage to last year. We managed to hit it all up.
Yeah.
We
So,
smashed the fourfold last year. To be fair, I'm not going to say who individually, but as a team, we done a hell of a job on them fourfolds. A hell of a, Paul, I know you had the profit numbers, but I'm expecting us to do the same again. So
yeah, I think we put about 400 quid up on it basically. If you bet a £5 on every single one, you'd have been 400 quid up, and you'd be more than 400 quid up if you didn't back it, if you didn't take any of mine. So
I wasn't going to name names. So.
It's all right. Look, I'm very accountable when it comes to this. I let the side down last year. I'm going to do better.
We're going to crush it as a team again, yeah. We're
absolutely going to crush it as a team. I'm going to do better. I had a good year overall. So, yeah. Follow us. Good team. Listening to good teams and great teams cover makes you money. That's a fact. That is an absolute fact at this point. So, gents, best of luck. May all your bets cash.